I've known Shep Englander, CEO of the Jewish Federation of Sarasota-Manatee, for several years. One thing that shines through in any conversation with Shep is how much he cares for his family, his team at the Federation, and the mission of the organization. The Business Observer writes about passionate nonprofit leaders like Shep regularly. To read those stories and more, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com for more. Hello, and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Shep Englander, president and CEO of the Jewish Federation of Sarasota-Manatee. Shep, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Excellent. We're going to get into leadership and the Federation and the things you've done in your career, and we're also going to ask you some quick, quirky questions. But before even any of that, I do have to let our audience know we've never talked about geopolitics or anything like that on this podcast, but for good reason. That's not what this podcast is about. But I do have to give a special shout out to my friend Shep, who generously included me on a trip to Israel in April, and something that I've wanted to do for many years and have never done. So Shep, a public shout out and thank you for including me on that amazing trip of a lifetime a few months ago.
It was wonderful having you on the trip. It was very powerful.
It certainly was. And we're going to get more into kind of your experiences there and kind of your career. But before we get into that, Shep, here are the three rapid fire questions for you. Okay. What are the two most used apps on your phone?
Probably WhatsApp, because I have lots of groups. And I have a music app that I really like called Tidal. Those are probably two of the most used.
Interesting. Tidal, T-I-T-L-E, Tidal?
No, T-I-D-A-L for some reason.
Oh, Tidal. Okay, that's fancy. Okay.
And it was created by musicians so that they would have more control and maybe get a little bigger piece of the royalties than with some of the traditional ones. You know, like with most things technical, I learn about these things from my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And WhatsApp, again, second time we're bringing up Israel, but that's how everybody seems to communicate in Israel. So I've used WhatsApp more since that trip than ever before.
And all around the world, really. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. What is one food or drink that you would take with you to a deserted island?
Probably babka.
Ooh, babka. For our uninitiated in our audience, Shep, what is babka?
Babka is probably the single best sweet dessert that comes out of the Jewish tradition. It's like a strudel. It's like a chocolate strudel, basically. And you can slice it thin, but you can't eat just one slice.
No, absolutely. I remember a cousin of mine during COVID did a babka cooking tutorial. It was a very popular family extravaganza on that. Okay, last rapid fire question. Who is one person, dead or alive, you would love to have dinner with?
Well, actually, I think I'd probably enjoy having dinner with someone alive. I think it'd be
That's a good point.
Kind of weird, but
Yeah.
But actually, the person who came to mind is no longer living. It'd be really amazing to have dinner with Albert Einstein.
That would be pretty cool. Excellent. All right. So, Shep, tell us, you're the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Sarasota-Manatee. How did you get into nonprofit work? How did your career in this space start?
Well, what's interesting is that I got involved in nonprofit leadership and organizational leadership in high school, but I never thought I'd be involved in Jewish nonprofits because although I was raised in a Jewish family. My parents weren't involved in Jewish nonprofits, and I certainly never knew there was a career in them. But really, starting right in high school, I started a sort of alternative student government, and then in college, I ran the speaker series, and then right out of college, I worked for a grassroots organization to improve healthcare for senior citizens. But then I went to law school, really because I didn't want to break my father's heart, to be honest. Um, and I knew that I wasn't going to probably have a traditional legal career. So I only practiced for about 4 years, and then I felt the pull of nonprofits and community building and public policy. And I just found a job right across the street from the law firm I'd been at in DC, which represents all kinds of Jewish nonprofits, including Jewish federations, on public policy issues in Washington, D.C., in coalitions, in advocacy. And that's how I found out really about Jewish federations, and ended up going to Pittsburgh and then Cincinnati and then here.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about Cincinnati. You had a tenure there that was really marked by growth and turnaround. And one of the statistics I saw was grew revenue from $9.7 million in 2005 to $22.7 million in 2019. So a pretty substantial growth, and then your endowment grew, over a 15-year period. How would you sort of describe that turnaround experience? How were you able to accomplish that growth?
A lot of it was just about collaboration and finding what the whole community wanted to do and be. This was a community that was one of the oldest Jewish communities. It was the first Jewish community west of the Alleghenies, and it was a big trading town in the western expansion, and it was very historic and had really grown up around the Jewish Community Center, which closed down because of location and needed a new home, and there was a lot of disagreement. I came to town in time to help figure out where it should be and what it should be, and to help build a new campus. The new campus was so energizing that it really attracted a lot of participation, and that led to the fundraising. It's really about creating a compelling vision and then giving people an experience they're looking for. Everyone thinks the most scarce resource is money, but it's really vision and people. If you combine the right vision and people, the money will follow.
Yeah, so you talk about, collaboration and creating that vision. How did you do what are some of the steps you took as a leader early on to kind of bring that cohesiveness together? How did you do that as a leader, get people on the same page?
So honestly, one of my best assets was I was new. And so there was disagreements about what we should build and where we should build it. And I wasn't there for any of it. So I could sit down with people on both sides and say, okay, forget for a moment that you disagree about where. Let's talk about what. Let's talk about this community's history, its culture, and what would really bring everyone together. And once we got all that down on paper, we realized that outside of the location, people were looking for the same experience, for the same way to connect. And then we picked a location that most people liked, not everyone did, but it turned out to work, and then everyone came around, and that's how we got to a consensus.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things of leadership, right? You're not going to please everybody with every decision. That's certainly part of it.
You wait around a long time if you're trying to get 100%.
Yeah. Talking about your career overall, Shep, talked about, law school is what your father wanted you to do, and did that for a little bit. I'm curious about your mentors. Who have been some of your mentors, and what have you learned from leadership from them?
Such a great question. So in this part of my career, it's been the Federation CEOs who have become iconic in the generation before mine. And one of the things that I actually did was that I asked them if I could shadow them. So I went to Miami, I went to Chicago, and I went to New York because they had CEOs who had really done extraordinary things and were visionaries. And they were very different from each other, but they all were transformative in their own way. And so I spent 2 days just seeing how they led early in my career.
What stands out, let's take one of them, say Chicago, or New York, any one of them really, but what stands out as something you remember that you saw them do, at a meeting or diffuse a situation or anything, what stands out that you learned?
Really their passion. I mean, they each led in different ways, but they were all of them were so passionate about what was the core of the organization and what were we bringing to the community that just galvanized people around them. So it taught me not to hold back, to be really clear about what's the vision, where did it come from, why is it the right vision? Because the more compelling you can be, if people disagree, you want to hear them out. But they won't disagree unless you really put it out there very clearly.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because that comes up a lot on this podcast when we talk about leadership is clarity, right? How have you sort of grown as a leader to know how important it is? What are some of those steps to just be clear, whether you're in a staff meeting or whether you're talking to the community at large, to be clear, how have you evolved as a leader in terms of clarity?
So one thing is if I've already made up my mind, if I've heard a lot of input, I've done the research, and I know where we're going, I don't pretend that I still need people's input. Someone gave me that feedback. It doesn't help. It actually just bogs things down. So if I know where we're going, I want to say, what's the basis for that decision? How does it advance our mission? Why is it the best strategy? What research have I done? But I don't want to pretend that it's time to get a lot more input because that wastes everyone's time. So that's one piece. We literally have the values written on the wall right out here. You can't see them, but they're written so that everyone can see what the values of our organization are. And whenever I write anything or say anything, I start with, what's our organization about? What's this challenge? And why does taking this approach versus that approach advance our mission more?
Yeah. Yeah, so you say that, and it's interesting. I remember reading a book years ago. I think it was Pat Summitt, the Tennessee women's college basketball coach, who would say to her players all the time, remember who you are and who you represent, like when they were outside of. And that's kind of what you're saying is remember those values.
Right. We're not doing this for me. Like people say, well, how do you feel? And I'm glad to tell them how I feel. But it's not about me personally. It's about the organization and the community and what they need.
Yeah. And second, sort of on mentorship, is there a piece of leadership advice that you have received over the years that really sticks out to you?
Yes. It's all about who. There was actually a book written by the president of the Cleveland Federation at the time. And it was about how he built his businesses, but it was true of the Federation when he led it. And what he meant by that was both the professionals and the board of an organization, making sure that you have people who are there for the right reasons, who are passionate, who have fire in the belly, but also who are flexible enough, who can listen to other people. Jim Collins, you've got the right people in the right seats. That's what I enjoy the most, is building a team of great, smart, motivated, passionate professionals and volunteers, and then not micromanaging them. letting them own their work.
Yeah. Yeah. Building the team, then letting them do their work is certainly important. And when you talk about building the team, or whether it's, promoting people or maybe even hiring people, Shep, what are some of the things that you look for in leadership? What are some leadership characteristics that stand out to you when hiring and promoting?
Honestly, maturity. I mean, and it's weird to have to say that, but a lot of times when people don't work out, it's because they have trouble putting the whole organization's vision and needs beyond their personal needs, their silo, their department. So people who can, put their own ego or attach their ego to the whole organization, understand that they don't work for a department, they work for the whole organization, and are self-aware. They know, I'm really good at this, I'm not good at that, so I'm going to really put myself out there in my areas of strength, and I'm going to be humble enough to ask for help in the things that I'm not as good at.
Yeah, it reminds me of, we have just as you guys have your values on a wall at the Observer Media Group, we have our values and hanging on a wall as well. And one of them is, to the customer, you are the company. And I think that's a really good message to everybody, that when the phone rings, as you're talking about that maturity, that they're calling, they don't know that there's 80 other people at the Observer Media Group, or that there's other people in departments at the Federation. They're calling you, and how you respond to them goes a long way.
That's right. Yeah, you're the whole organization. Absolutely.
Yeah. What the flip side of some of the good things that happen as a leader is sometimes things don't go your way, whether it's not getting a certain employee, or a certain grant, or just things that didn't go the way that you expected or wanted. As a leader, how do you overcome setbacks and failures and mistakes? How do you overcome those?
I think the most important thing is to learn from them, to be brutally honest with yourself and each other. Because if you knew you were taking a risk and things went sour for the very reason that you knew they could go sour, then it was just a roll of the dice. So you can't win them all. But if you get a result that you didn't want and you didn't expect, then it's time to really roll up your sleeves and say, okay, what did we miss and why did we miss it? And I like to say that I never mind making a mistake. I just never want to make the same mistake twice. So if I make a mistake, I really want to get underneath it.
Excellent. Shep, as we're sort of getting toward, fourth quarter, end of 2025 here, what are some of the things you're looking forward to? What's new and exciting happening at the Federation the rest of the year?
Lots. I'm so glad you asked. So next month, we're going to open a sports community called Sun Court Sports. We were so fortunate that a prior board president, Ian Black, and his team at the time was able to buy, back in the 80s, a piece of land that everyone thought was way too far from the center of town. No one would ever go there. Now is in the center of everything. And so we're really fortunate, and we have so much going on this campus. So we have opened and are thrilled with the response to our conference and event center, the Aura. We are in the process of opening a mini Holocaust museum, the Chaffetz Holocaust Memorial and Education Center, which will be opening in phases over the next year and a half. We had our first full season of our day camp, Camp Yanni, but unfortunately, because of permitting and construction, we weren't able to give the kids the experience of the full campgrounds, and we will give them that experience next summer. But camp is really mostly June and July. We'll have some vacation camps. We want to be able to make the beautiful campgrounds and sports facilities available to the community the rest of the year. So we're going to have Sun Court Sports, which will both be a place where people can meet and get to know each other while playing tennis, pickleball, basketball, group exercise, but also help us to give scholarships to the kids in camp and pay for after-school youth sports. And we're thrilled to have brought on a tennis icon from the community who created and built the Lakewood Ranch Tennis and Fitness Campus, Paul Lederman, who will be starting with us next month. And it's going to be a great way for people to meet each other. And so that's happening in October. And then we'll open the rest of the campgrounds probably in November, and we'll start to bring school groups out to our Holocaust Education Center probably in the spring, because we're just installing all kinds of educational art. And so the campus is really coming alive.
Excellent. Well, a lot of things happening at Jewish Federation of Sarasota-Manatee. Shep Englander, CEO of the Federation, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Mark.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.